Hey everybody, welcome to Home with the Halsteads and welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make some miniature sausage quiche. It's divided into two parts, it's easy, and I can think of so many ways that these can be used. You can serve them to your family, you can serve them for a brunch if you're having a get together with some ladies or some men, or you can just make some for you and your husband and put them in the freezer. And so let's get busy and let me tell you how we're going to do it, because it's a two-step process. First of all, we're going to make our pastry shells, and let me tell you what we're going to need to make those. And also I'm using little miniature muffin tins. These are 1 3/4 inches across the top. And so this one will hold 24, this one will hold 12, and the recipe makes a total of 36 miniature sausage quiche. I'm starting out with 1 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour plus 2 tablespoons. 1 3/4 cups plus 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. I sifted it and then I measured. 1 1/2 teaspoons of salt. 1 1/2 teaspoons of salt. 4 1/2 tablespoons of butter, and we're going to melt the butter. We're going to use 1 egg yolk, only the yolk, 1 egg yolk, and then I'm going to use 5 or 6 tablespoons of cold water. And I just got some water out of the refrigerator dispenser, and I put 2 or 3 ice cubes in it in this little glass. So we'll just use the amount of water that we need, but it'll be 5 or 6 tablespoons. Once we get our pastry shells made and baked, then we'll prepare our quiche filling. So what we're going to use as our filling is 1/2 pound of ground pork sausage. This is Jimmy Dean's. It's half of a roll. It's 8 ounces. And I will brown that and drain the excess grease off. 2 eggs. I'll add 2 eggs, 1/2 cup of milk, 1 1/2 tablespoons of butter. And I'll melt the butter, 1 1/2 tablespoons of butter, and 4 ounces of cheddar cheese that I have grated myself. And then I'm going to sprinkle some paprika. And once we get it done, if you wanted to garnish with some parsley, then you could do that. So let's get busy. Let's make our pastry shells first, and then we'll make our mixture to go in the pastry shells, and we'll bake it, and it'll be ready to serve and to enjoy. We're ready to make our pastry shells, and we're starting out by putting our flour in the bowl, and that's 1 3/4 cups plus 2 tablespoons. Next, I'm adding our salt, 1 1/2 teaspoons of salt, and I'm just stirring that around using a fork. Next, I'm going to add our butter. I melted the butter and then I let it cool. We're going to be using ice water to make these pastry shells, and also we're going to be adding an egg, and we don't want the butter to be hot, so I let it cool off a little bit before I added it. So I'm just taking a fork and kind of mixing the butter in with the flour. This is kind of like if you were making cookies or even biscuits. You would want to incorporate your shortening or your grease or your butter, whatever you might be using, into your flour. And this is kind of like, actually it's kind of like making dumplings. You want to mix that butter in and it'll kind of look like meal. You could use your hands if you wanted to mix it in, but I'm just using a fork today to mix the butter in. Next, we're going to add our egg yolk. And I'm going to just kind of beat this up before I add it in. And again, I'll use a spatula to get it all out because we're just using one egg. And we'll just kind of mix that around. If it gets caked on your fork, just take something and rake it off and continue mixing. This is so easy, and this can actually be done ahead of time. If you wanted to make up your pastry shells and put them in your little muffin tins, cover them really well, cover them tight, maybe with some plastic wrap, and just put them in your freezer. And then the next morning when you get ready to make your sausage quiche, you could just take them out, let them thaw like you would a pre-made pie crust. So now we're going to add the water. This is ice water. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll start with 5. I had said 5 or 6, but we just want to make a dough out of this. And I'm mixing it up. Forming a dough for our pastry shells. Now, I'm going to slip on a glove because all of you know that I like to work with gloves sometimes when I'm using my hands, for several reasons. It just makes it easier for me. It keeps things from getting under your nails. So this really is kind of like making biscuits. So we just want to form our dough, mixing it well so that the egg and the butter will all be incorporated into all of it. And so I'm just kneading it around like this. Now, let's bring our muffin tins back. I'll start with a small one, and I'm just going to break off a small piece of dough, about like that. I'm going to roll it into a little ball, and I'm going to put it in each one of the muffin tins. Once I get this done, I'm going to put mine in the refrigerator for about maybe 15 minutes and let it kind of get cool. And then we'll come back and we will press this, shaping it into a little cup or shaping it into the muffin tin. We'll prick holes in it, and then we'll bake it because we're going to put our quiche mixture into a fully baked pie shell before we finish baking the quiche in the oven. So I'm going to continue to roll these out and put them in the muffin tins, and when I get it done, then I'll come back and I'll show you how we're going to finish it up before we put it in the oven to bake. And I'll see you in just a minute. I am browning our sausage in this small saucepan. I have this fork here that works really well. So I'm just stirring it, constantly stirring it, browning it, breaking it into small pieces, getting it ready to go into our quiche mixture. I am almost finished with our pastry shells, getting them ready to go in the oven. You can see that I have 36 here, but I saved a couple because I wanted to show you how I press it down and fit it to the size and the shape of the little muffin tin. So I just take my finger and press it down and shape it with my hand. Now I take a fork and I prick the bottom and the sides just like I would if I was pre-baking a pie crust. Some of our pie crust we pre-bake and some we don't. It just depends on what the recipe calls for. But this is the way that we prepare our pastry shells for our miniature sausage quiche. So now I have preheated my oven to 400 degrees. I'm going to bake these for 5 minutes. I'll take them out, and while they are baking, I'm going to brown our sausage, and then we'll put our mixture together, fill our pastry shells, pop it in the oven, bake it, and then it'll be ready to eat and enjoy. We're ready to put our quiche mixture together. So we're starting out with our sausage that we browned, and to that I'm adding 2 eggs, and I'm just going to stir that around, beat that up a little bit. And I got some egg on my hand, so I just need to wipe that off. We'll add the other egg. So that's 2 eggs with our sausage. Next, I'm adding the butter. Remember, this is 1 1/2 tablespoons of melted butter. Now, I'm not adding salt because I use salted butter, and our cheese is salty. We put salt in our pastry shells. So if you feel like you need salt or you want added pepper, then you just feel free to go ahead and add that. Next, I'm adding our milk, 1/2 cup of milk. And you can tell that this is beginning to look like a quiche mixture. And last, I'm adding our cheese, 1 cup of grated cheddar cheese. You can use any type of cheese that you want to. You can use mild, you can use sharp, just whatever is your preference. So I'm just mixing this around, making sure that it's all mixed well, that it's all incorporated. And it won't take much to fill our little pastry shells, because remember, these really are just bite-sized little quiche, miniature quiche. But they are going to be so delicious, and guess what? Your friends, your family's going to be impressed. So now, let's bring our shells over. I baked them for 5 minutes, and it really just starts the process of baking. Kind of gets them firm. So now we're going to fill each shell, and I'm just going to put some in a little spoon and drop it in the little shell. And like I said, it won't take much. So I'm going to work to fill these little shells, and I've got 36 to fill, so it'll take me a few minutes to do that. And when I get them all filled, then I'm going to put them in the oven, bake them on 350 for 25 to 30 minutes. And of course, as I always tell you, I'll be checking mine because my oven does cook fast. So I will be back once we get these in the oven and get them ready to bake or get them baked, and I'll see you in a little bit. Our miniature sausage quiche are done. They're ready to come out of the oven. Aren't they pretty? And you can see that I only have 32, so I didn't have enough to fill 4 of the cups in the small muffin tin pan. So I just took those little pastry shells out and set them aside. But it could have been that my eggs were smaller than normal, or maybe I didn't distribute evenly. Nonetheless, we have 32 miniature sausage quiche that'll be ready to eat once I take them out of the oven and they cool just a few minutes. See you in a little bit. Thank you for joining me in my kitchen today. Thank you for helping me make these miniature sausage quiche. And I forgot to tell you that I did add a little bit of paprika on top. Imagine me forgetting to tell you something. So now let's taste. Look, it's just the perfect bite-sized piece. So I'm just going to take a little bit, taste it. That's delicious. Sausage, cheese, eggs, butter, pastry shell, all in one bite. I hope you'll share my video. Thank you for joining me. Have a blessed day, and I'll see you again really, really soon.